In the heart of a hidden valley cradled by towering peaks lies the village of Loria, a place where every winding path and cozy cottage breathes a story. The air here hums with whispers of legend and brushstrokes that touch the very soul. I arrived in Loria with nothing but a satchel of paints and a heart full of dreams, eager to soak in its famed artistic heritage. My name is Elena, a young painter whose life had been a canvas of ordinary hues until the day I stepped into Loria. The village was a riot of colors that day, celebrating the annual Festival of Arts, a spectacle that drew artists and dreamers from all corners. It was here I first saw him, Maestro Vincenzo. His presence was like a vibrant stroke on a dull background, impossible to overlook. Vincenzo was not just an artist, he was an institution, a living legend whose artworks were said to be infused with magic. People spoke of how his paintings could stir the soul and whisper secrets long forgotten. As he moved through the crowd, his charismatic aura left a trail of admirers in awe. I watched from afar, my mind teeming with questions. How could one's hands wield such power? Was it true, the tales they told of canvases that breathed and danced with life? As days turned into weeks, my fascination only grew. The more I observed, the more I understood that Vincenzo's art was indeed magical. But it was not just about the paint or the skill. It was about the stories he chose to tell. His art spoke of love, betrayal, joy, and sorrow, capturing the very essence of human life. Despite his fame, I noticed a loneliness that clung to him like a shadow. It was in the brief moments he thought no one was looking that his smile would falter, his eyes reflecting a story untold. This only deepened the mystery for me, drawing me closer to the man and the myth. In Loria, I quickly became one of the village's own, my art blossoming under the canopy of inspiration that the place offered. Each stroke of my brush felt as if it was guided by the spirits of the mountains themselves. And as my reputation grew, so did my chances of meeting Vincenzo up close. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting a golden glow over the village, our paths finally crossed. Vincenzo's piercing gaze met mine, and in that moment I felt as if he saw straight into my soul. "You have the heart of a true artist," he said, his voice a melody that resonated with my deepest aspirations. It was the beginning of a journey neither of us could have foreseen, a dance of destiny under the starlit skies of Loria. As I recount this story, the emotions and colors of those days flood back to me, painting my words with the hues of nostalgia and dreams. It was a time of discovery, of learning the depths to which art could touch lives. And in the midst of it all was Maestro Vincenzo, the man who would change my life in ways I never imagined. As the sun rose over the village of Loria, its first rays lit up the quaint streets like the opening lines of a forgotten hymn. This was the morning of my arrival, a morning that felt like the beginning of a new chapter in a book I had longed to read. My heart was full of stories I had heard about this mystical village, its legendary artists, and one Maestro Vincenzo, whose works were said to be as spellbinding as the history of Loria itself. Carrying nothing but my dreams and my modest collection of paints and brushes, I stepped into the village square, where the Festival of Arts was in full swing. Colors danced in the air, mingling with the laughter and chatter of the crowd, and music floated through the streets, wrapping the village in a cloak of jubilation. It was here, amid the swirl of festivities, that I first laid eyes on Vincenzo's art. His paintings were unlike anything I had ever seen. They pulsed with life, each brushstroke a whisper of stories untold, each color a deep sigh of emotion. I stood there, transfixed, feeling as if each piece of art was speaking directly to me, pulling me into its depths. The power of his work struck a chord within me, awakening a fervent desire to learn, to grow, and to one day evoke such feelings in others with my own art. As fate would have it, Vincenzo himself was present at the festival, a figure of such poise and presence that the crowd seemed to part naturally around him. His eyes, sharp and discerning, swept over his admirers and critics alike, until they rested on me. Perhaps it was the unguarded admiration on my face, or maybe the fledgling fire of a fellow artist in my eyes, but something in that glance bridged the space between us. Approaching him was like walking towards a future I had always envisioned. With each step, my resolve strengthened. "Maestro Vincenzo," I began, my voice steady despite the fluttering in my heart, "your work has moved me beyond words. I have traveled far, fueled only by the hope to learn from someone like you. Vincenzo observed me for a moment, his gaze piercing yet not unkind, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Art is not just learned, it is felt," he replied. "If you seek to understand it, you must be willing to let it consume you." From that day on, I became a protege of Vincenzo. He took me under his wing, not just teaching me the techniques of paint and canvas, but also the art of seeing, really seeing, the world around us. Our sessions together were intense, often stretching from the early light of dawn till the shadows grew long and deep. Vincenzo's studio became my sanctuary, a place where art wasn't just created, but where it lived and breathed. As our bond deepened, so too did my understanding of art's true power. Under Vincenzo's mentorship, I began to see the layers beneath the surface, the emotions that a mere stroke could evoke. He taught me that to be an artist is to be a keeper of emotions, a weaver of visual tales. Each day in Loria brought a new revelation. Each painting I created, under Vincenzo's guidance, a step closer to discovering my own voice in the vast chorus of artists. But as the days turned to weeks, I began to notice the subtle undercurrents of the village, the complexities of admiration and envy that Vincenzo inspired among his peers. My story, it seemed, was weaving itself into a larger tapestry, one filled with as much mystery and intrigue as the art we both held dear. As my apprenticeship with Maestro Vincenzo unfolded, I found myself increasingly entwined in the fabric of Loria's artistic community. My days were painted with learning and creation, but as the hues of my understanding deepened, so too did the shadows cast by the revelations that came with them. One crisp autumn evening, as the last light of day filtered through the stained glass windows of Vincenzo's studio, I stumbled upon a truth that would forever alter the course of my journey. Hidden away in a secluded corner of the studio, beneath a cloth draped carelessly, I found an unfinished canvas. Curiosity piqued. I pulled back the cloth to reveal a painting unlike any other Vincenzo had shown me. It was a portrait, but the eyes, they seemed almost alive, flickering with an inner light that was unsettling. Compelled by an inexplicable urge, I reached out, my fingers brushing against the surface of the canvas. The moment I touched it, a wave of sorrow washed over me, so potent and deep that it felt like it was drawn from someone else's life. Startled, I stepped back, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and fascination. The following days saw me grappling with what I had experienced. I began to pay closer attention to Vincenzo's interactions, the subtle ways he engaged with his subjects before they became part of his artworks. It wasn't long before I noticed a pattern. Each individual who sat for him seemed altered afterwards, their emotions heightened or dulled inexplicably, always aligning strangely with what Vincenzo's art depicted. Driven by a need for answers, I started conversing more with other artists in the village. One evening, under the dim glow of lanterns at the local tavern, a seasoned painter, whose eyes held the weight of untold stories, shared his own experience. "Vincenzo's gift is not just in his hands, Elena," he murmured, his voice tinged with a bitterness that made me shiver. "It's in how he binds us to his will. We sit for him, and our fortunes, our very emotions, become tethered to his creations." The more I learned, the more a chilling realization took root within me. Vincenzo's paintings were more than just art. They were conduits, channels through which he manipulated the fabric of people's lives. This revelation shook me to my core. The man I admired, the mentor I trusted, wielded his talent like a sorcerer, bending the wills and fates of those around him to his own desires. Conflicted, I found myself at a crossroads. Each brushstroke I laid upon my own canvases now felt tainted with the knowledge of what art, Vincenzo's art, could do. The enchantment of Loria, once so vivid and inspiring, now seemed a facade masking a darker truth. How could I reconcile the mentor I revered with the manipulator I now saw? My heart wrestled with disillusionment and betrayal, even as my mind sought a path that might lead me not just to artistic greatness, but to a moral justice for those ensnared by Vincenzo's gifted yet grievous brush. The revelation of Vincenzo's manipulation weighed heavily on my soul, casting long shadows over the vibrant landscapes of Loria that had once filled me with such inspiration and joy. I was torn, caught between the deep admiration I had for my mentor and the stark, unsettling truth of his influence. As the days passed, a resolve began to form within me, quiet yet firm, like the first colors of dawn chasing away the night. I decided it was not enough to simply turn away from Vincenzo's teachings. I needed to forge a new path, one that would illuminate the true essence of art, its power to reflect genuine emotions and to liberate, not bind. With a heart brimming with purpose, I retreated into my modest studio, pouring my soul into canvas after canvas. Each piece was a testament to the stories of the villagers, the raw, unmanipulated spirits of Loria. These paintings were different. They were crafted not only from paint, but from trust and shared experiences. I listened to the villagers' joys, their sorrows, and their dreams, embedding each emotion authentically into my art. Unlike Vincenzo's, my works did not seek to alter or control, but to reveal and celebrate each individual's true self. Word of my new project spread through the village, sparking curiosity and a newfound sense of anticipation. It culminated in a grand exhibition, not in the opulent halls of the village center as was customary, but in the open air of the village square, under the vast, starlit sky. I wanted the art to be part of the world it sought to represent, accessible to everyone whose stories helped paint it. The night of the exhibition arrived, buzzing with the collective energy of the entire village. Lanterns hung from the trees, casting a gentle glow over the assembled paintings. As the villagers moved from canvas to canvas, a remarkable transformation began to take place. Faces long marred by Vincenzo's subtle alterations brightened with genuine expressions of recognition and relief. Laughter, real and heartfelt, mingled with the soft whispers of the evening breeze. It was then that Vincenzo arrived. His entrance was silent, almost ghostly, as he took in the scene before him. Our eyes met across the crowded square, a silent challenge passing between us. With a nod that was both a greeting and a gauntlet thrown, he approached, his presence commanding silence. The duel that ensued was not one of words, but of brushstrokes. Vincenzo, with his masterful techniques, painted right there in the midst of the crowd, attempting to weave his enchantment anew. But this time, I was ready. I countered each of his strokes with my own, my brushes dancing with vibrant colors that spoke of freedom and truth. Our canvases became battlegrounds, reflecting the clash of two philosophies, two visions of what art could and should be. The air thrummed with the energy of our confrontation, charged with magic and emotion. As the last stroke was laid, a hush fell over the square. It was as if the very atmosphere awaited the verdict of our silent battle. Slowly, the villagers began to gravitate towards my paintings, their expressions of wonder and support filling the night with a palpable warmth. As the confrontation ended, Vincenzo stepped back, his face unreadable. The night had shifted something fundamental between us and in the eyes of Loria's people. My heart was pounding, not with victory, but with the profound realization of what we as artists held in our hands, the power to shape realities, to bind or to free. Tonight, I had chosen the latter. With a deep, calming breath, I watched as the village, my village, reclaimed their emotions and stories, each person a vibrant thread in the rich tapestry of Loria. And as the stars blinked high above, I knew that my journey had only just begun. The aftermath of our magical duel under the starlit skies marked a profound shift in the village of Loria. The revelation of Vincenzo's manipulations, laid bare by the stark contrast of our canvases, rippled through the community, awakening a collective yearning for authenticity over enchantment. As the truth of Vincenzo's influence unraveled, so too did the spell he had cast over the village for so long. In the days that followed, Vincenzo became a figure of solitude. The man who had once stood at the center of Loria's artistic world retreated into the shadows, his usual haunts now void of his presence. The whispers around his secluded cottage spoke of a man grappling with the magnitude of his own legacy, a legacy tainted by the realization that his art had not liberated but constrained. Meanwhile, the village itself seemed to breathe easier, as if relieved of a weight it had carried unconsciously. My exhibition had not only unveiled the true emotions of its people, but had also ignited a spark of transformation throughout Loria. The villagers, once mere subjects of Vincenzo's canvases, now approached me, eager to share their stories and sit for portraits that reflected their true selves. Each session was a collaborative journey, a shared exploration of the emotions and experiences that made each person uniquely themselves. This newfound freedom resonated deeply within the community, leading to what many began to refer to as a cultural renaissance. Artists who had once hidden their work, overshadowed by Vincenzo's towering presence, now stepped into the light, their creations vibrant with personal truths and untold stories. The village square, once dominated by Vincenzo's exhibitions, now hosted weekly art markets where creativity flourished in its most genuine forms. As for me, Elena, the once timid apprentice who had arrived in Loria with a heart full of hope and a satchel of paints, I found myself at the heart of this cultural awakening. My story, interwoven with the revival of the village's artistic spirit, became a symbol of resilience and integrity. Parents told their children of the young artist who dared to challenge the Grand Maestro, not with swords or words, but with the pure, undeniable truth of her art. In time, my paintings became more than just art. They were chapters of Loria's ongoing story, testimonies to the power of authenticity and the strength of a community that chose to embrace it. My studio, once a quiet sanctuary for personal reflection, became a bustling center of collaboration and inspiration. As Loria blossomed around me, I often found myself wandering down to the river that cut through the village, a place that had always offered me solace and perspective. Gazing into its flowing waters, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The water, ever moving and ever changing, reminded me that life, like art, was about flowing with our truths, embracing change, and finding beauty in the depths of our authentic selves. And so, my legend grew, not as a tale of conquest, but as a celebration of the triumph of one's inner voice over the seductive lure of control and manipulation. It was a legend that I hoped would inspire not just the current generation of Loria, but all those who would come after, a beacon of integrity in the vibrant tapestry of human expression.